What's going on, FA Nation? Happy Thursday, and welcome to the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS live stream. I am James Grande. Across the way, John Impemba. John, we have a nice little four-game slate. Neither of us were on the playbook for today. That was Sean Mitchell
Who'll
on the
soon be
playbook,
making his live stream debut.
who will soon be making his live stream debut. Almost fully set up. We got everything in the works there, but until then, it is you and I. I'm sorry for everyone that, has to put up with us every day, but thank you for always tuning in, and big thank you to Matt Sells once again for producing behind the scenes. But, John, 4 games, so not a ton of things going on. We do have some interesting injury news we're waiting on. Obviously, Andre Drummond is probably the biggest proponent, biggest news item we have remaining. Currently questionable. If Drummond does not play, that opens up a ton of everything because ton of usages. Drummond really does it all for that. He just does it all for that team. Also, Al Horford is currently a game time decision, as well as Jamal Murray and Paul Millsap for Denver. So we have a ton of pieces for just a 4-game slate. There is a lot on the line, like contingency plays. This is one of those nights where we should be building multiple lineups prior to lock. Right. With Drummond, or if we want to play Drummond, one with people like Blake Griffin, like a Christian Wood, like a Derrick Rose, right? Is that the approach that you would take?
Probably anyways,
right?
Just in general. But I tweeted obviously at Sean earlier today when he, quote tweeted the Drummond news. I was like, Blake Griffin, $6,700. If Drummond's not there, I know Blake has let us down a ton this year. But we talk about smash spots all the time. Like, this would be one of those just like can't miss opportunities for Blake if Drummond's not in the game here. So definitely something we're looking at. And I almost feel like, Drummond obviously is like the biggest name, biggest upside production play. If Horford does sit, like that does also really impact that rotation in Philadelphia. And I feel like, it gives a guy like Tobias Harris, a big boost. We already know that Embiid, is a big play. But if Horford's not there, maybe Embiid gets more of a run. Maybe he doesn't go on that long, 6 minutes into the first quarter break because they don't really have a true backup center, behind them to fill in the gap like Horford usually plays. So, Horford could have just as big of implication on this slate being out as would, Drummond almost.
Joel Embiid, just a couple numbers to note without Al Horford: 1.59 fantasy points per minute, 33% usage rate. Third highest usage bump on the 76ers without Al Horford. Josh Richardson leads the team with the usage. Not a big bump, 1.7%, but 1.7% is a solid usage bump. Yeah. And I don't know if you looked at Josh Richardson's price over on FanDuel today, but $4,400.
Yeah, I think he's, I wonder if he's not healthy or they're just bringing him back slow because only 17 and 19 minutes in the 2 games since coming back from that hamstring. So it's interesting to see, they made that huge trade and they got Richardson back and hoped maybe he would sort of fill the Butler role. And, the last couple of games, the minutes haven't been there. But again, he missed a while with that hamstring injury. So maybe that's the reason.
Definitely could be the reason. But, John, 4 games. We do have 5 positions to break down. So why don't we kick it off at point guard, where we have the ever-so-reliable Luka Doncic going up against the Detroit Pistons. And, John, there's nothing more than we like to do than attack Pistons point guards.
Yeah. This is the spot we've been doing all season long. It's going to be Derrick Rose for a period of time against Bruce Brown, at periods of time at point guard. They still don't have Reggie Jackson back. It's funny in our, subscriber chat, people were wondering if it's worth paying out for Luka because, he's sort of, regressing a little bit. And, his regression is still, 25, 7, and 7. He's still just off some of those bonus numbers you get on DraftKings that could easily push him up to 50 or 60 fantasy points. And again, this is a matchup where, take away a guy like Drummond in the middle. Now there's nobody at the rim really. Right. Christian Wood, sure, but he's not the big imposing figure that an Andre Drummond is. So take that away. Luka's still taking a boatload of shots. I'm not really going to shy away from him here in this spot, at all. At 11-4, we talk about guys on small slates who have the ceilings and you want to play them. This is the guy. There's few guys on this slate that can go for 60 or so fantasy points, but I don't think anybody really has 80 point upside here like Luka typically does. No, we've seen Embiid do it once or twice, but this year we've seen Luka do it a lot. So
right, and I don't think the price tag is all that crazy if some of these big names sit out because we'll get a lot more value.
Value that could open.
Right. We obviously have to wait for that. But Luka, fine. Kemba Walker broke the slate last night.
2% ownership.
2% ownership, went for 60-plus fantasy points. Not the easiest matchup, but obviously without Marcus Smart, there's something here with Kemba. We've seen now 20-plus actual points in 3 of his last 4, obviously including 44 last night, 7 threes. We know the minutes are going to be there. Are we in on Kemba? It's not technically point chasing because he's still only $7,700 and there's still no Marcus Smart.
Yeah, I mean, isn't this really, if you look at the box scores, just kind of remind you of like how Kemba usually is?
Yep.
It's like, 35, 36, 50.
Yeah.
And you're like, Kemba's really good. We should play Kemba again. And then next game, 34. Like, damn it, you don't play him. He goes for 50 again. You're like, the last couple of games now, you look at, 56, 32, 40, 52, 33, 38, 64. So what night are you going to get the explosion on? You probably won't have him in your lineup. You just have to like consistently play Kemba and live with the nights that he goes for 4x because there's nights where the 8x is going to hit and no ownership. So on a small slate, it's rare that he'll do it on back-to-back games. And, at least an opening night when they played Philadelphia, he struggled a lot. I think maybe the length of Simmons could have bothered him a little bit. But, if he's going to take a bunch of shots, and I kind of think he should, I have no problem going back to Walker here.
I actually love the point guard on the flip side of this game. You mentioned him, Ben Simmons, really rolling right now. Especially there's no Marcus Smart. I mean,
the 6 shots last night is just frustrating.
The 6 shots is definitely frustrating. Peripherally, he's dominating right now. And if we just got a couple more shot attempts, that would be great. But 37, 39, 36, 34, 38. I mean, he rarely plays under 30 minutes or under 35 minutes in a close game. So we know the minutes are going to be there. We know, he's just a matchup nightmare. He went for 45 against this Boston defense the first time. So I think Simmons is a great play, basically the same price as Kemba. Flip a coin, probably. Probably Simmons safer in cash.
Yeah, I think Simmons will be the more popular option. So if you want to go contrarian, you can play Kemba.
Thoughts on Jamal Murray if he plays? Sean saw that on his Instagram page.
He did.
That Jamal Murray said he would play. If Jamal Murray does play, we've made a bunch of money playing guards against Portland. I shouldn't just say guards. We've made a bunch of money just playing guys against Portland in general because they don't
not
defend.
Not a good defensive team.
Right. Are we interested in Jamal Murray 6,500 on this slate?
I think you have to be. Especially if he plays on a smaller slate, you're getting a guy in a mid 6K price tag who, he's almost like to a lesser extent as frustrating as Kemba Walker can be to own.
Yes.
Where his so-so games are mid-20 fantasy points. At least Kemba's giving you like mid-30s half the time. But when he pops off, he can give you 60 upside as well. So if he's going to play, if he's going to be active, I think there's a possibility that he's actually pretty popular tonight, given the price tag. And we're looking at a game here, 215 total. They're home. It's a 7-point spread. I think you could certainly see a lot of Murray ownership here.
Now, I think we both agree Derrick Rose is a really strong play and borderline elite play if Drummond sits. But I want to talk about DeJounte Murray. I want to talk about the Spurs guards in general. DeJounte Murray played 31 minutes last game, and then after the game, Popovich said that there's basically going to be no hard cap anymore. We're going to see Murray play extended minutes. So tonight we're going to see him play 22, right? And then Patty Mills has had back-to-back games of 33 and 36 minutes.
Right. What is that all about?
But it's Patty Mills, and we've seen for years, no matter what the situation is, 33, 36 can result in 18, 20 the next 2 games. Yeah. So how are we handling this Spurs backcourt, considering it really doesn't get better than attacking the Cleveland backcourt.
I still think you have to play DeJounte. I mean, like,
have to, right? I think it's almost a must.
Yeah, I mean, just the upside that he can bring to the table, and he does a little bit of everything. We're always talking about those guys, that fill up the stat sheet, and that's how in DFS, that's what you want. You guys can get your rebounds, assists, he can get blocks, steal, like, he can do it all. We like to attack these Cleveland guards. Sexton and Garland are not very good. I'm not gonna say they're not good, but like they're easy to go up against. Like they're offensively they're fine, but defensively they're terrible. So, and we talked about it on the podcast last night. If he goes and plays 35 minutes tonight, if this game stays competitive and whatnot, I mean, we thought Cleveland was going to get blown out last night, and they held on to Houston. Maybe they kind of blew it all last night, and now they'll be dead. But if this game stays competitive and you get mid-30s minutes out of Murray, next slate, Murray's going to be $1,000 more expensive. So just for the price point reasons, like you almost have to play him now. Agreed.
Let's shift over to shooting guard, and it's actually not as strong as it's been on recent slates, and that's likely due to 4 games. But DeMar DeRozan, great spot. I don't think we need to harp on that too much. It's Cleveland. They're the worst team against shooting guards in the league in DVP. Really nice price tag over on DraftKings, 7,300. Jaylen Brown against Philly, tough matchup, but he's been really, really good. Sean points out 26% usage rate and 122 offensive rating over his last 5 games at home. We know Boston's at home tonight. He does likely run into Matthias Thybulle defense tonight, which is not fun for many people. But I don't think we should not play him because of that. I think Jaylen Brown's fine. Tim Hardaway. My
biggest gripe with Brown has been the foul trouble that he's been in a lot this year.
This year, I mean, his whole career, right? He's kind of been.
But he fouled out of the game against the Pacers. He had 5 fouls against Cleveland, and then the first game against Philadelphia this year, he played 20 minutes because he had 5 fouls. So. Foul trouble has kind of been his Achilles heel, but he's also been probably the most consistent player among that starting unit, even more than Tatum. So
the rest of the shooting guard position is kind of bleak. I mean, we have Tim Hardaway against Detroit. Luke Kennard is an exploitable matchup for Hardaway, but Hardaway is very volatile. His GPPs only. It's probably a scenario where you pair him with Luka, and you hope that Luka's Luka has 15 assists because Hardaway's hitting his shot. It's a nice little pairing. You probably run it back with like Blake if Drummond sits. It'd be a very interesting little game stack there. And then Cleveland guys. Clarkson had a huge game last night, and we kind of alluded to this on the podcast. There was a scenario where the Cavs would stay close, and it was where Kevin Love and Jordan Clarkson scored all their points, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, obviously Kevin Porter. Game that Kevin Porter had.
Kevin Porter was in the playbook yesterday, but as like a game theory of a blood, not that he was going to be a key member of their rotation.
Their leading scorer. Right, and that was the anomaly of yesterday's game. But can we begin to see are we beginning to see the shift anyways in playing time? I mean, we've seen what Cedi Osman's minutes are, and they are on the rapid decline. He only played 18 last night. And obviously, they weren't taking Porter off the floor, but Porter's now played 24-plus minutes in 3 straight games.
There's no reason to play Cedi Osman.
No reason. So, I mean, especially with a team developing guys like Darius Garland, developing guys like Colin Sexton, why not also develop Kevin Porter? Do we have interest? Are we chasing Porter, and are we chasing Clarkson too? Because I mean, Clarkson's not going to play in a blowout. He's going to play a little bit, but we've seen him get taken off the floor in blowouts. What do you have to say about both these guys?
So, I mean, I am more inclined to play Porter because, like you said, I feel like his role is likely a little bit more secure regardless of what
100%,
happens.
100%.
But, I mean, it's been how long now we've been just begging for Jordan Clarkson to be allowed to play consistently 25-plus minutes a night. Like, I understand his defense is non-existent, but his usage rate is consistently on the floor among the league leaders in the NBA. And he scores. He's like a very good scorer. Like, I don't know what teams don't like about Jordan Clarkson, but I will gladly take him on any team that I cheer for. So, unfortunately, we can't trust it. It's a good price at $4,400. If I probably won't have any shares, I'll just go pay the $3,600 for Kevin Porter tonight on a 4-game slate and really, use that as my value because I just think Cleveland has to start playing this kid more. I'm hoping a performance like last night and more recently, some of his more consistent performances, he's opening some eyes and will get some run.
Over at small forward, we have the likes of Tobias Harris. Harris has a very nice floor for cash games. If there's no Al Horford, there's obviously going to be a ton of ownership headed his way. I think he's valuable all formats. Will Barton, we know, tournament play, and we have a little revenge narrative. Ex-Portland Trailblazer here. We have a bunch of Denver has a few revenge narratives tonight. As we're on the currently we're on the Carmelo Anthony revenge tour.
The original revenge tour, yeah.
Right. The Knicks the other night, now Denver tonight. But Will Barton, 50-point fantasy game. We know he's volatile, though. So we could both agree tournaments for Will Barton. You've told me that a million times, and I still don't listen to you and play him in cash.
Play him in cash.
But fine for tournaments in pretty much any scenario because he's one of those guys, if he gets going, he can't be stopped. Gordon Hayward, we just got a status update. He's probable. It is the second night of a back-to-back. Will Brad Stevens limit him considering an extended absence? Who knows? But the price tag is still fine. $6K, $6.5 on both sides.
I don't see him limited.
Right.
Last night he got hit in the face and had to miss the final handful of minutes of that game. I think he would have been in there till the end. As long as he's not, doesn't have a broken nose or anything like that. Maybe I haven't seen him. I haven't seen any reports. Maybe he's got a black eye or something like that. But no Marcus Smart again. So they really do need him. Out there to at least play, 25 to 30 minutes, So he played 26 minutes on his first game back. And it wasn't like a leg, ankle, knee conditioning thing. Like he had like a minor fracture in his hand. So I don't see a reason. It's not a shooting hand, too. It's his guide hand. So I can't imagine there would be a reason why Hayward wouldn't play 30 minutes. And he had a really good game against Philadelphia to open the night, 25-5 in that game against them to open the season. So.
Any love for Luke Kennard or Matthias Thybulle here in Sean's
Kennard for sure. Not even it's just Drummond is out. But you talked about maybe him being the one matchup against Tim Hardaway Jr. and how long we just love that spot. So,
right.
Again, I feel like there's a lot of nights where I always like look at Luke Kennard and I see his game logs and I'm like, he's pretty good. He's pretty consistent. He plays all the minutes. He gets a lot of shots. He's efficient. He gives you a little bit of everything. And then something will happen, and he's always like my first pivot out. But on a smaller slate, I feel like Kennard is, a high floor player.
Yeah, and Thybulle is interesting because we talked about the Josh Richardson minutes comparing because we don't know if there's a limit or if it's because Richardson played poorly coming back. Thybulle has seen 26 plus minutes in 4 of his last 5, and that's encouraging. Probably more of a play on FanDuel just because of his ability to get a steal.
There's a little
blocks.
bit of a revenge narrative with that pick too, because Boston sort of forced the Thybulle pick by the 76ers during the draft.
Interesting. A little added incentive for Thybulle tonight. Yeah. Okay, I can get behind that. Let's move over to power forward. Jason Tatum. Tough matchup if Al Horford plays. Yeah. Not as much if it's Mike Scott or Tobias Harris guarding him. I think in that situation, I would have more interest in Tatum if Horford sat. If Horford plays, not that it's like the hardest matchup because Tatum's athleticism probably trumps Horford's defense, but Horford is crafty, so I probably prefer him if Horford sits. Do you agree with that? Or
I do a little bit, but I also want to point out that sort of the way the rotation has been happening of late with Marcus Smart out of the lineup has mostly been with Jason Tatum on the second unit with guys like Brad Wanamaker and Javonte Green and Semi Ojeleye. So, Brad's been leaving Tatum out there to be sort of the scorer on the second unit, primarily the scorer there on that second unit. So, there's definitely some chances where he's going to be on the floor and they're just going to force feed him shots regardless, right? On that opening night, he was pretty bad. He was 8 for 22 shooting the basketball, still finished with 42 fantasy points, 21-10, even with Horford playing in that game. So I still think Tatum's fine. They're back home. This is kind of a big game. So I think you can go ahead and play this game. We talked about it last night. I know he didn't really have the best of nights, but how, Pacers and Celtics were the lowest total on the board, but yet, they play close. They could exceed that over, and then everybody would be low owned. And that pretty much is what happened. A lot of guys in that matchup all killed their value
Right.
And we're on basically a lot of the winning slate lineups. So I think a similar occurrence could happen here, where Boston, Philadelphia just plays tight. They go back and forth, and maybe there's just less ownership on this game.
Well, there will be a lot of ownership on Blake Griffin if Drummond sits. And I think there will be a pretty healthy amount of ownership on Blake Griffin, even if Drummond doesn't sit, considering he's 6'7", 7,100. If Drummond sits, is Blake the lock of the slate?
I think everybody's going to have to go to him. I mean, you just can't. It's one of those scenarios, like Paul George the other night without Kawhi Leonard. It's Russell or James Harden when Westbrook sits, or
Middleton last night.
Yeah, right. Like Middleton, no Giannis. You play Middleton and Bledsoe. Like there are guys when they're out, it just goes. It goes to the guys that are next in line in terms of usage. And we know Blake can take over games. We've seen it before. This year, obviously, he doesn't look right, but he did have 40 fantasy points 2 games ago. So if he ends up being the primary here against Dallas, then I think you're going to have to go to him. I think Porzingis is also pretty interesting in that own right if Drummond isn't there. And I know another guy that has disappointed, hasn't really looked right since coming back this year, but if he can stay on the floor, there's going to be probably more rebounding opportunities with Drummond gone. He'll be the tallest person on the floor, so there'll be block shot opportunities. So I would even have more Porzingis interest now than I do currently with Drummond, potentially playing.
Some other names Sean has at power forward, Carmelo Anthony. We talked about revenge narrative. Denver has actually been allowing a lot of fantasy points over league average to power forward over the last 2 weeks. So there is a little something there for Carmelo. Plus, 25 plus fantasy points in 7 of his last 8. Not bad. LaMarcus Aldridge gets the Cavs. Perfectly fine if you want to go there. And then Larry Nance in a value situation. We don't know the status. It's Kevin Love, and we could magically get a late
I
track
feel like
for
we
Kevin
would have
Love.
got that news already if that was an actual chance. We talked about that theory that maybe Love would sit on a back-to-back. But as of now, everything looks okay. So it would really be an out of the blue, his back tightened up while he was doing shoot around or something like that. So I think that's fine. I think I'm a little surprised that he doesn't have Grant in the playbook.
He has him up top. So he has him up top.
Okay.
And he has a few guys up top, and he did state if Millsap sits, he likes Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, I think Grant would be a very good play on the slate again if Millsap ends up sitting. One, you have that matchup against Carmelo Anthony. Grant is an athletic freak. If you remember, last year he was putting up big fantasy numbers in OKC. $3,900 went to Denver. He's had some opportunity, but hasn't had a ton. Mostly when he's played over 20 minutes, though, he's giving you almost a fantasy point per minute. He can get blocks, steals. He's not the best shooter, but he takes outside shots as well. So Jeremy Grant, if we find out that Millsap is out, is going to be another probably core part of my lineup tonight just to get that value.
I agree, and I actually like Millsap if he plays 4,900 on DraftKings against Portland, and he's at home. And I know you didn't get
a chance to listen to the podcast, but Sean and I we talked about you a little bit.
I love Paul Millsap at home. Yeah. It's my favorite play.
We brought that up. We talked about it.
Let's finish it up at center. Andre Drummond, obviously the biggest question mark of the slate. I think you can smash this. You can smash this spot with him if he plays.
Yeah.
Obviously, if he doesn't sit, we're going to pivot to Christian Wood. I think Christian Wood is a perfectly viable candidate. We've seen Christian Wood do some crazy things in limited time.
He had 49 fantasy points in 22 minutes the other day.
It was obvious from his time last year in New Orleans that he could do this. He just needed the opportunity, and tonight could be that opportunity. 4K, I think Drummond's elite, and if Drummond doesn't play, Christian Wood is elite as well. I think he's core member of our lineup. Embiid against Boston, we know Boston doesn't defend.
This isn't going to be a good night for us.
Yeah, if there's one thing that Boston does not do well, it's defend the center position. Now, they did, limit Embiid. We should preface it by saying...
Do you remember that game? You know who guarded Joel Embiid in that game?
Oh, yes, Marcus Smart.
Marcus Smart did.
And
Smart isn't active tonight, so we're
he went for 44 fantasy points in only 23 minutes.
I know.
So if we get 30 minutes of Joel Embiid, we could be looking at 55 to 60.
And he only played the 23 minutes because of the foul trouble that Marcus Smart got him in. This is gonna be it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a tough night. So yeah, I mean, I'm playing Embiid.
Is he your top play? Is he your top play over Luka?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if over Luka because I don't know if Embiid is gonna go for 80 here. I think Luka has that potential, but I mean, he could. I mean, he definitely could. 9,500. I think he's going to be the chalky play. I don't think anybody is going to pay up. I don't think people would play Drummond over Embiid if Drummond was active here. I think they would just play for Embiid. What's his FanDuel price? Is he more expensive or less?
He's $10,000 on FanDuel.
And what's Drummond?
10.6.
Okay, yeah. So I think Embiid's probably the chalk, anyways. They did play Enes Kanter like 25 minutes or something like that in the first game. That's the game he actually got hurt in. So I feel like the plan is potentially to play Kanter tonight against him.
Please play Kanter against him.
I know, but Daniel Tice is too small, So like I feel like they also double teamed Embiid a ton. And when the double team came, he was just like hitting the open cutter. Like that's why Tobias Harris had such a huge night. Like they were just cutting to the rim every single time. So it'll be interesting. It's as a Celtics fan, it's tough going into games knowing that we stand no chance against certain players, and Embiid is certainly going to be one of those players until we get somebody else out there. Yeah, I'd feel better if Robert Williams was active, but he's not. So
Sean is clearly spending up at center because the only other two centers he has in the playbook are Nikola Jokic and Hassan Whiteside. So it doesn't look like we'll be spending down. He does have Tristan Thompson up top for a little salary dump, but he's right. We don't really have many centers other than the top. Christian Wood obviously gives us value, like you mentioned. We could go Enes Kanter. We saw Kanter play 13 minutes last night. 17
fantasy points in those 13
17 fantasy points, not denying the fact that we've never not stated that Enes Kanter is a fantasy point per minute monster. It's just getting the minutes has always been the bugaboo. Dwight Powell, 4,500. But his minutes are declining. I'm with Sean. I'm spending up, or I'm playing Tristan Thompson. And if I'm on DraftKings, I mean, you could thankfully play a power forward over there.
Yep. I think that's probably where you're going. Would you play Boban Revenge?
No, I wouldn't.
He had 15 points and 16 rebounds in 23 minutes the other day?
Yes, they also lost by 50.
No, they won that game by 50.
Won that game. So it was a 50-point spread. If you, can you see the future and you see this game blowing out, then yes, you could play Boban. If not, you're going to get 4 minutes and
you'll get 18 fantasy points instead.
Which at 3K is not the worst. John, it is 6:35, 25. Actually, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock roster lock tonight.
8 o'clock, hour and 25 minutes.
Long way to go. I may still go to the Celtics game tonight. I have that much time.
Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I mean, just, cross your fingers and hope somebody gets ruled out so we can get some value on this slate.
I agree. Again, big thanks to Matt Sales for producing. Good luck, everybody, and we'll catch you guys in the winner's circle.